read the purport and go over your heads. Shreyan swadharmo viguna paradharma swanushthita swabhavaniyatam dharma kurvanapnoti kibisham. Shreyan, better. Swadharma, one's own occupation. Vignoha, imperfectly performed. Paradharma, then another's occupation. Shu anustita, perfectly done. Swabhava niyatam, prescribed according to one's nature. Karma, work. Kurvan, performing. Na, never. Apnoti, achieves. Klivisha, sinful reactions. Does anyone want to go and read the verse? So, purpose by His Divine Grace Prabhu. It is better to engage in one's own occupation, even though one may perform it imperfectly, than to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Duties prescribed according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. One's occupation duty is prescribed in Bhagavad Gita. As already discussed in previous verses, the duties of a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya and Shudra are prescribed according to their particular modes of nature. One should not imitate another's duty. A man who is by nature attracted to the kind of work done by Shudras should not artificially claim to be a Brahmana, although he may have been born in a Brahmana's family. In this way, one should work according to his own nature. No work is abominable if performed in the service of the Supreme Lord. The occupational duty of a Brahmana is certainly in the mode of goodness, but if a person is not by nature in the mode of goodness, he should not imitate the occupational duty of a Brahmana. For a Kshatriya or administrator, there are so many abominable things. A Kshatriya has to be violent to kill his enemies, and sometimes a Kshatriya has to tell lies for the sake of diplomacy. Such violence and duplicity accompany political affairs, but the Kshatriya is not supposed to give up his occupational duty and try to perform the duties of a Brahmana. One should act to satisfy the Supreme Lord. For example, Arjuna was a Kshatriya. He was hesitating to fight the other party. But if such fighting is performed for the sake of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there need no fear of degradation. In the business field also, sometimes a merchant has to tell so many lies to make a profit. If he does not do so, there can be no profit. Sometimes a merchant says, "Oh my dear customer, for you I am making no profit." But one should know that without profit, a merchant may not exist. Therefore, it should be taken as a simple lie if a merchant says that he is not making a profit. But the merchant should not think that because he is engaged in an occupation in which the telling of lies is compulsory, he should give up his profession and pursue the profession of a Brahmana. That is not recommended. Whether one is a Kshatriya or a Vaishya or a Shudra doesn't matter if he serves by his word the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even Brahmanas who perform different types of sacrifice sometimes must kill animals because sometimes animals are sacrificed in such ceremonies. Similarly, if a Kshatriya engaged in his own occupation kills an animal, there is no sin in that. In the third chapter, these matters are clearly and elaborately explained. Every man should work for the purpose of the earth, or for Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anything done for personal self-occupation is a cause of bondage. The conclusion is that everyone should engage according to the particular goal of nature he is acquired, and he should decide to work only to serve the supreme cause of the Supreme Lord. Okay, so let me just repeat the pranam chanting. Om Jnanamandasya Dhananjanasham Chalakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Pariyam Padami Swapada He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dindabandhu Jagarpate Gopesha Gopikatata Radha Radha Namaste Bhakta Kanchana Gaurani Shri Radhe Radheshwari Vishwara Sudhiri Pranama Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Sadguru Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. Okay, so coming to this chapter, this is the 18th chapter, so this is a summary of all the perfection of renunciation. And the recap of this chapter so far has been that Arjun is now asking Krishna for the final time what renunciation and tyag, what's the difference between the two. And Krishna proceeds to say that they are actually one and the same, and renunciation and tyag is giving up the material fruits through your actions, but not with your actions. And we have been progressing so far, and we are now planning what we call yoga ladder. So previously we have discussed Krishna Maharaj has already said about the karma, what karma is, and how it all falls under the modes of nature. And now this slope is now about Nishkama Yoga. So this is where Krishna Maharaj is explaining that no matter what you are, what your nature is, you have to do work according to your prescribed duties. So that's what this slope is all about. So in this verse, what's really nice is that there is Krishna is saying that we should and we should engage in one's own occupation. Even though one may perform it imperfectly, then to accept another's occupation and perform it perfectly. Duties prescribed according to one's nature are never affected by sinful reactions. So it's like, I can give an example. So, for example, say that you are wanting to, all of us are here invited for a meeting, and the meeting is going to be placed in, say, Nairobi. And some of us may be in Mombasa, some people live in Kisumu, in Eldoret, in Lamu, and all these places. And we all have to go to this one meeting in Nairobi. So our destination is the same, but our starting point is going to be different. So every one of us has got a particular nature, and that nature has been built through the modes of material nature, or influenced by that over so many lifetimes. So everyone is unique in that manner. And so we all come into this life with a particular nature. And so that is akin to saying that my nature is like based in Mombasa, somebody else's nature is like, okay, they're based in Lamu or Eldoret or Kisumu and all that. Now we all have our different starting points, but our destination is the same. The destination is going to Nairobi, and in the spiritual world it is attaining the Lord. So although we may start at different routes, so for me to go to Nairobi I have to go northward, but somebody coming from Lamu has to go westward. So that is, so whatever is prescribed for a person living in Isubu cannot be applied to me who lives in Vasa to get Yogi. So like that, every Varna and every ashram, the Varna ashram is such that it is so perfect that Krishna has designed it in such a way that everyone, even despite that all of us having such different natures, will all fit in this. And this system is so perfect because Krishna himself has created it. And for proof of that, I would like to do an exercise. So I want everyone to think of a new country. Say we just created a new country. What type of people would we need to make that country effective or to run the country? Any answers? Any suggestions? Like what would you need? Okay, you need a military. You need a military to protect your island or your country. So anyone else where you go? You need what type? You need laborers, you need administrators, you need doctors, engineers. So what else you need? Anyone else? Others? Okay, so as I was saying, you need administrators, you need politicians, you need laborers, you need lawyers, you need Krishna? Okay. So we said we have laborers, we have administrators, we have defense. Anything else? Politicians as well. Teachers. We need teachers to educate the children. So as you can see that we need all of these different jobs and different criteria to make it a successful nation. So all of these things, okay, so teachers, they come under the Brahmin class. Then you've got the defense administrators, they come under the Kshatriya class. Then you've got the farmers, who is going to provide the food for the country. So you've got farmers, and then you've got businessmen who will run the economy. So all those are not mentioned. Then you've got the laborers, you've got engineers, you've got software engineers, all these other accountants, handyman, repair works, all of these are laborers. So as you can see, even in this world, we have this natural division of order, that you have these four varnas, and they are akin to, like described as a body, where the brahmanas are the head, where they direct the entire society in a spiritual way, and then the brahmanas, they would advise the administrators, who would then make laws in such a way that it would be beneficial towards spiritual advancement, and then they'll provide protection and make sure that everyone is following that. Then you have the Vaishyas who would provide the food and just run the economy, and then you have the laborers who will be helping above the classes perform their duties. So in that way, this whole Varna ashram was such nicely designed that each and every one is working like a well-oiled machine, and all geared towards spiritual advancement. There was no caste system, which was based on birth, which is a perverted and distorted version, while in the Varna ashram was based on the qualities of the individual. And that qualities, as explained, is coming from each person's mode, like the mode of nature that affects each and every person. So, what Krishna is saying here, that it is better to engage in one's own occupation. So if you have the qualities of a Brahmana, then you are best served to work as a Brahmana, because you have the certain qualities that a Brahmana, which are the 9 qualities, like you're peaceful, you're tolerant, you are learned, all these which have been explained in the earlier verses. So when the society was worked in this way, when everyone was doing their own certain prescribed duties, that was known as a Swadharma. And that Swadharma is then aligned with the Paradharma to make their alignment of spiritualness or spiritual activities. And in this case, Arjuna, he is a Kshatriya. So his job is to fight. And this Paradharma, which is ordained by God, is also to fight. So in this case, he is aligned. So his Swadharma and his Paradharma is aligned. So that is why Krishna says that Arjuna, you should fight. He does not tell Arjuna that no, you should let go of your prescribed duties and go into the forest and become a sannyasi. No, because by fighting, Arjuna is best placed to make spiritual advancement. His nature is such that if he does fight, he will attain perfection. That is not going to be the case for everyone, but that is the case definitely for Arjuna. So we as conditioned souls in this world, we have to find our own nature, and in that way try and align it with spiritual activities so that we ourselves get purified. Now, everyone has got different duties on how to get that purified, but there are certain common things or spiritual practices that we can all do to purify ourselves. So, like again, an example. If you make the assumption that we're all traveling to Nairobi via a car, so we all have a car, so we all know we have to drive a car to Nairobi. So that is common. So that is common throughout the entire society, where in this Kalyug, in this age where there is no more varnashram, then the easiest and the fastest way and the most common way to get to the same goal, which is liberation through devotional service, is by the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, and another point that why everyone should work according to prescribed duties is very practical. Like if somebody is very strong, then naturally you give him to do weightlifting, get everything moving one thing to another place, and you give certain tasks which are suitable for that person because of his disposition as a bodybuilder and all that. So when a person is doing the work that he is most suited for, 2 things happen. They get the most joy out of it because it is most aligned to their nature, and everyone benefits because everyone is doing the best that they are suited for. So in that way it was very perfect, and nowadays unfortunately everything is very standardized. Everyone goes to school, everyone learns the same subjects, no one really specializes in their own strengths, and that is why we have this epidemic of people just suffering in this world and not enjoying and having the fulfillment because they are not working towards their own strengths, towards their own natures. So that is why we need to now find what works for us. What works for me will not necessarily work for you. But that is the endeavor that we can make, and try and whatever you're good at, try and make it aligned towards how you can apply it for Krishna. And So if, for example, you're a very good carpenter, then what you can do is you can make this nice mandir for Bhagwan. That would be your seva. If you're a very good accountant, you could do the books and keep the track of all the money in the temple and help spread in projects and all that. If you're very good at cooking, you can cook for the Lord. If you're very good at painting, then you could decorate the temple with very nice paintings and offer that as a service. So it's all about finding what you're good at and try and align that into Krishna conscious activities. Now, there's this one story or incident in the Ramayana where it shows that how when a person doesn't his prescribed duty, how it really distorts everything. So in the Ramayana there is this story of Shumba, and we're going to compare that to Shabri. So now Shumba was a Shudra who was trying to learn the Vedas not for spiritual progress, but just so that he could make a name for himself, gather education and distort the purpose of all the Vedanta sutras. And when Ram Bhagwan came back from Ayodhya, a Brahmana's son had passed away, and that was not heard of at that time. So he